Let me read to you a passage from the 12th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 39 to 48. It's the Gospel for Wednesday of the 29th week in Ordinary Time, Year 2. St. Luke writes, Jesus said to his disciples, "Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect the Son of Man will come." Then Peter said, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and prudent steward, from whom the master will put in charge of his servants to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master on arrival finds doing so. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his property. But if that servant says to himself, 'My master is delayed in coming,' and begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants, to eat and drink and get drunk, then that servant's master will come on an unexpected day and at an unknown hour, and will punish the servant severely and assign him a place with the unfaithful. That servant who knew his master's will, but did not make preparations, nor act in accord with his will, shall be beaten severely. And the servant who was ignorant of his master's will, but acted in a way deserving of a severe beating, shall be beaten only lightly. Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more." That's from Luke chapter 12, verse 39 to 48. And what does it suggest to us? Well, by way of initial aside, just a passing remark, I have always thought that St. Luke had a sense of humour, and that we see evidence of it in his inspired writings. For instance, in the Acts of the Apostles, we think of the Jews attacking Sosthenes, the ruler of the synagogue, when they were unsuccessful against Paul. That's in Acts 18, verse 17. Or again, the consternation that Paul's words about the divine justice caused in Felix in Acts 24:25. Or Felix's exasperation in telling Paul that his studies were driving him mad in Acts 26, verse 24. Well, also, I find a detail in our Gospel passage today, which is from St. Luke, a detail a little amusing. Our Lord begins his instruction about being constantly prepared for the coming of the Son of Man, and then suddenly Peter interrupts, asking if the parable is meant for them or for all. Our Lord appears to carry on with his parable regardless of the question, as if Peter's intervention is mildly beside the point, or perhaps as if the answer to his question is obvious. Well, be that as it may, our Lord's teaching today in our Gospel passage is surely of immense importance, and we see it recurring time and again in the Gospels. We must stand ready for the coming of the Master, and that coming could occur at any point. In the parable our Lord tells, illustrating the point, the servant does not doubt that the Master will come. It is just that he makes the assumption that his master is delayed, and that therefore his own activities will go unobserved. And the master arrives and finds him in the midst of his neglect and punishes him accordingly. Well now, what of modern man? We of the modern age tend to doubt the reality of what we do not see or touch or hear. we require the possibility, at least, of empirical testing. The supernatural is the object of our scepticism. Just conduct some sort of review of the philosophical literature of the past decades and notice the extent to which the supernatural is assumed to be non-factual, or by contrast, the extent to which theist philosophers feel obligated to defend the supernatural. It is a reflection of the materialism of the modern age, and a fruit of much of Western thought over the past few centuries. We now think that if something is out of sight, then it should be out of mind. Our parable today insists that it will be no excuse to have been forgetful. We must take steps to train ourselves to remember, and to remember constantly, that the unseen Lord is due. He is on his way, in the sense that when he does arrive, we shall be judged on how he finds us. Now this is a particularly important point, in a sense that might easily escape us. The all-important moment in our life is the moment of our death, and the dispositions and degree of love and obedience with which we are found at death will be decisive at our judgment. If at a certain stage of my life I was serving Christ faithfully, and subsequently abandoned my Christian faith, turning my back on Christ and on obedience to God, and if this is the disposition and state I am found to have at my death, what do I take with me as I go before the judgment of God? I take little but my neglect, because what I had of Christ and life in him I abandoned for the sake of other loves. I am found to be like the servant of today's parable in the Gospel. If much of my life has been neglectful of Christ and of my duties to him, but if despite this I repented and set about the diligent and loving service of Christ, and am found at this work at my death, then it is with Christ that I go to my judgment. The all-important moment of my life is the moment of my death. But to prepare well for the future moment, I must live as best as I can every present moment. The present is the best preparation for the future. How should I prepare for my death? I prepare for the moment of my death by living for God in the present. I must attend to the duties Christ my Master has entrusted to me right now. I should do them for him, do them as well as I can in all their detail because they come from him, and do them in their entirety whatever be the cost. That is to say, I must strive to sanctify my daily work of each day, of the now, and through doing a holy work in a holy manner now, I shall sanctify myself and others as well. If this is my daily way of life, then at the last, when my Master arrives, he will find me ready and not caught unprepared. You know, it was once said to me by a university lecturer, he was my doctoral moderator, that the God of the Old Testament was a God of judgment, and the God of the New Testament was a God of love. His words constituted a hopelessly misconceived simplification. Time and again, our Lord speaks of the coming judgment of God, and he does so in our Gospel passage today. Let us then take heed of his words, and so live, as always to stand ready whenever the Master might arrive.